All right, great. Good evening, everyone. I'm calling this meeting to order of the Charter Revision Special Meeting of Thursday, June 26, 2025. Can we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Agenda item 3, Chairman update. I just wanted to officially in our meeting say thank you to the Board of Selectmen and to our town attorney and to our CRC attorney, Mr. Buxbaum, for a spirited discussion 2 nights ago. I thought we really got to the heart of the issues, and it didn't take a whole lot of time. I mean, I think we got through a lot of stuff very quickly, very efficiently, and I appreciate all of the inputs from the board members, and I think they've set us up well to move us forward. I have the official memo. If you guys don't have copies, this is the official memo. Brian, do you have it?
Yeah.
Okay. So with Eric's input and a bunch of other people's input, Prue's notes, Jen Carpenter created an official memo from the first selectman to us, and it's the 10 things that we are going to discuss tonight. So I'll use that as kind of the roadmap for tonight's meeting. But to start, agenda item 4 is to hear and consider the meeting minutes from May 1st. They're up on the screen, but I know you can't really see all of them. The May 1st, just to remind everyone, this was our second public hearing. This was at the regional fire school. Not a lot of comments here. I mean, listen, the most important thing here are the comments from the taxpayers that came. Did anyone have any changes to the minutes? Anyone need a couple of minutes to review?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Judy, I have an extra copy of this if you'd like. Do you have it?
I don't know, are they in one of the?
It's in the backup.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Backup from tonight.
Sorry to make you wait.
No, that's fine. Well, I'll start. I for one have no comments. I've read through it. See, again, pretty high level stuff, but I think the gist of what everyone was there to talk about, it was captured well. So I'll just give you guys a couple minutes.
I just skimmed through, that's fine. I'll make a motion unless other people are looking to.
I didn't have any changes.
I had none.
Okay.
Motion to approve the May 1st minutes.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner McHenry. Any other conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is unanimous, Prue. And there's 5 of us, Prue, just so you know. Commissioner Hoag and Commissioner Blanco are absent tonight, Prue, just so.
Okay, thank you. I was going to ask that.
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry. I should do that more often. Agenda item 5 is to hear, consider, and approve the draft minutes from May 8th. Whoops, sorry about that, guys. Just so you guys know, May 8th was our final run through, and the final vote before we push the document forward to the Board of Selectmen.
I'll move to approve the minutes of May 8th.
We have a second? We have a second. Any further conversation? Okay, all in favor of approving the meeting minutes for May 8th, 2025, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It is unanimous, Prue. Great, thank you. Agenda item 6, review and discussion of the Board of Selectmen comments to the CRC's draft charter revision. So, let me see if I have these. Are they in any of the links, do you know?
Which, or what?
What do you mean the links?
Any of our links on our webpage, the actual
The letter
document?
from the first selectman?
Yeah,
There's certainly,
Posted yet?
no, this was posted between us at least, I know that.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's on the website.
let me
yet.
see if I can find it real quick, just so I can share it, so we can look up the big screen. Oh, here it is. Make sure I got the right one. Yeah, here we go. You know, there were 2 versions because Jen didn't like something was in here. Okay, let me continue the share. Okay, here we go. I'm going to take the liberty of skipping over number 1. That is the without cause, which I think would probably be the most of our discussion this evening. So I'll go right to number 2, minority representation. So section 2.2C, Selectman Vitale made a motion that passed to ensure that the charter now allows for minority representation on elected boards and commissions. Now, I had a question for, if I can find it. Here we go. So for our town attorney. So there's some language in here about what we should do, who we should, what we should delete and all. But I guess I have a very basic question. Under 2.2, here we go. 2.2, right. So it talks about minority representation for even number requirements and uneven requirements. And each one of these takes an exception for the Board of Education, which is C.
Right.
Can't we just get rid of 2.2C and take away the exception language, and then in the Board of Education part, put the schedule that gets us back to a point where, but in July, we have to elect 3 people, in June, we have to elect 3 people?
So you don't have to change the schedule. All you're doing is
Okay.
changing who can get nominated.
Okay.
So, Jason and I looked at New Canaan's charter and we came up with language to revise C.
Okay.
There's a statute that allows you to do this. It's an optional statute for the town.
Okay.
So we think it's important that there is a separate section that opts into that.
Okay, great.
So if you guys choose to do it, we have. language for it.
So,
Also, I don't think you can just take away C because A is even number, which would say 2-2, which is what we need to change if we follow.
but even numbers for everyone else, except the Board of Education, right? Minority representation on boards and for even number, except for the Board of Education.
Right, so my point is if we take out that exclusion and also take out 2C,
Right.
then it would be 2-2, which is what they're asking us to change.
Oh.
And we can choose not to change it.
Got it.
Then we're not changing it.
Well, so let's start with that. First off, is there any objection to changing it? I know I don't personally have any, objection to the premise of the change, right?
No.
So, and I know, the notes I took were use the New Canaan charter language, so if you have that.
So we used that and drew some language from the statute basically it allows the parties to nominate. It's the same concept as what's in New Canaan.
Okay, and you say we don't need to have the painful steps of next November, we have to elect 3 people and 2 people, that kind of
It's
thing?
not changing that.
Oh.
That's if you change the term length, you'd have to do that, but that's not what this is.
Oh, got it, okay. Oh, wonderful, well,
It
that's
just changes how many candidates
Well, that's great.
parties can nominate.
Okay, great. I don't know how
was
you
happy
should.
there was not a change to term length recommended.
Oh my gosh, I was thinking about that last night. I'm like, I don't want to do that math. That math makes my head hurt, so I erroneously said the other night, I'm like, yeah, well, that'll be in place in like 4 years because when there's a term limit change, it takes you like 4 years to get, because you can't just throw somebody off or pull somebody in the middle,
Right.
right?
So this is an off year coming up in November, this November?
This is an
Yeah, this
off
is
year
one.
because it's a
So it's gonna be
2025.
it'll be 2-2, because this will not have changed,
Correct.
assuming approval. So it will be 4 years.
Well, 2 years,
It'll be 2 years.
the next municipal.
But
Well,
4 years would be the
But
next.
this charter already allows 6-3.
But not, but it can't happen by way of, it only can happen by way of a vacancy currently.
Right. But at the same time, the next election, so 27, it's a 3 of 5, which we're not changing, right?
I don't, well, I mean,
Well, I don't think we're talking about changing 3 of 5, are we?
No.
So then I'm more just trying to make sure we're clear on how it would happen. So
Yeah,
this year,
yeah.
nothing changes. In 27, it'd be 3 of 5. So unless there's a vacancy, a per appointment, it's still the same.
Same process.
you're saying there's 3 candidates up at that time.
Well, it's 5. 5 are up for election, and the charter says that
You only have 3.
You can only have 3 from one party, and that we're not changing that.
Correct.
So then in 29 is the first time the 2-2 goes to 3-1. So it's the first, in 29 be the first time that you could get to a 6-3.
It would be this year, it would be this year, but this won't be in place for that.
Right. So it really will
Oh,
be
yeah, I
four
see what
years.
you're saying. Yeah,
Which
that's,
isn't a problem, it's just that that's when it would happen unless there's a vacancy.
the math doesn't work unless you have 2 2-year cycles, only because of the timing of when this is gonna get approved, right?
Right,
Okay.
which isn't a problem. It's just-
I don't think it's a problem, but, okay. So, how would you like to move forward? I mean, I was thinking, we could either make a motion like I've done and say, please ask the town attorney to incorporate the New Canaan language in 22C, and then we can all vote on it, or we could just incrementally go through all the steps and then, kind of one fell swoop.
Maybe one by one.
Yeah, one of-
Okay, well then I'll make a motion to update paragraph 2.2C with the New Canaan charter language
Second.
that the town attorney has. I won't get into painful detail. Is there any further conversation or discussion about this point? Okay, all in favor?
I
500 approved. Thank you very much. Okay.
do, just process questions.
Sure.
Do we want to ask for public comment on each time or at the end?
I was thinking we could do it at the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then,
Oh, yes, please, because, there's no one.
We're voting though, maybe we
Right,
should.
that's because we're voting.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Any public comment, Judy,
on that item.
on that item that we just voted on? Sorry.
Well, I did have a comment.
Okay, go ahead. We can rescind the
Well,
vote.
it was part of a state statute that have a 6-3, a 3-6. I thought it had to be around, the other way around. 3-6 instead of 6-3. Isn't there a state statute?
I'm not sure I
What does that
understand.
mean? I don't know.
There's a whole section about minority representation on boards and commissions in the state statutes.
Yeah, I think we're in compliance with that.
If we opt into.
If we
the
opt in,
statute.
if we opt into this statute, we're now in compliance. As of today, we're not in compliance, right?
I don't know what that.
If
There's a
it's,
statute that sets minimums for minority representation.
Yeah.
I think the 6-3 is in compliance, but check.
One other just process question. So is our objective that we would have conforming language to go into assuming the meeting is scheduled on the 9th of the Board of Selectmen? We'd have conforming language going into that meeting?
yes. My expectation is that after we come out of this meeting, town attorney would update a document, and maybe we could have a second red line document. So take this clean document we have, red line that, and then hand that to the Board of Selectmen and say, here's exactly what we changed.
Yeah, so Judy, so you're referring to General Statute 9-167A. So for a 9-member board, that sets a maximum of 6 from one party. So this doesn't change that. It's also, right now, the charter allows 6 from that party. It can only happen by way of a vacancy, though.
Yeah. Yeah, it can happen, it's just mathematically hard. You know.
But it's a good point to check that.
Yeah. So, Phil, I just want to make sure you heard what I said. My expectation is that out of this meeting, so can we consider the document we have right now as the clean document? And then could you every change you make, could you make track changes so we can hand to the Board of Selectmen
To the existing draft report.
to the existing draft report? So we can hand to the Board of Selectmen a document that in theory will change 10 things or not change 10 things as we like.
Right, I think we'd have to give them, we probably would end up giving them 2 documents.
Well, I would say, yeah, maybe we could do a,
One with like all the red lines.
Because they're gonna have to, they are
Plus.
gonna vote on all the red lines,
right.
ultimately.
I just want to make sure that they understand what the delta is.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So
Okay.
that's- But also for your purposes, that's what you're working off of right now, changing from the draft report, so I think that makes sense.
Right.
You don't need all the historic red lines.
Yeah.
Right.
And just so we're all clear, the only things we're addressing this evening are the 10 things the Board of Selectmen. So if I've determined that I don't like the tree warden thing, guess what? I have to hold my tongue. Tree warden's done.
So I have a question. If we haven't seen the changes we're voting on, should we meet again before we meet with the Board of Selectmen to vote on the actual changes, like
Well,
the
they don't-
wording?
So I think the process, I mean, Chris, you can talk to the process that you had envisioned, but.
Yeah.
The idea was you guys meet tonight, decide conceptually what you want to do. And then you'll have a meeting to confer with the Board of Selectmen. You can discuss the draft language at that time or not, but it's a chance to confer.
Yeah.
And then after that, you'll have a meeting to actually vote on everything.
Okay.
So.
Right,
Makes sense.
yeah, so 3 meetings, right? So tonight, which is kind of
Get the direction.
get the direction, establish the real words, because as you could tell, the Board of Selectmen wasn't that interested in what words, like I scratched down some what I think should be the real words, right?
Yeah.
Then we can have a discussion. Now, I just want to be clear, because Jason was a little confusing. If we hold the meeting at 3, or whenever we hold the meeting, that is a CRC meeting with the Board of Selectmen invited, is that correct?
I think you can notice it that way.
Okay.
I mean, it's just, the statute just says that you have to confer with the Board
Okay.
of Selectmen, so.
So we could go to the Gaelic Club and have a beer, or?
Well, you can only
Probably
hold
has to be
meetings-
public.
Yeah.
As long as Judy's there, I mean, what's
If you
the?
notice it to the Gaelic Club, you can do that. But maybe not the beer part, but.
I think we'll probably just, so I'll notice the meeting.
Okay.
It's a CRC meeting, and then we'll have that document. We should be able to go through our 10 quick things and get the thumbs up, so. And then if they have, and I guess at that point, I guess if there's strong objection, we could change something, but as I would see it, we would, after we confer, we would just move, rather than taking up any new topics, we would just have another meeting to say, okay, we voted on all this, let's vote it forward one more time. And then the Board of Selectmen has 15 days at that point if they want to do any line item vetoes or one big veto.
With the change that after a very quick vote in that last meeting, we then go to the Gaelic Club.
Then we go to the
I
Gaelic
like
Club.
that idea.
Good timing. Good point. Okay,
To make it worth coming together in person.
Right.
exactly. So, number 3 on the list. So this is 6.2A, and you know what, I'm gonna take all the 6.2s together, because they're not quite in order, but I think it makes it a little bit easier, because there are quite a few. So number 3 is 6.2A8. This is Selectman Vitale's recommendation that the capital plan now say, and I'll read the real words, but the cliff notes are, the first selectman is going to prepare and maintain a 10-year capital plan, and then Selectman Vitale's recommendation was review it with the Board of Selectmen and then go to the Board of Finance. So conceptually, I don't think do we have any problems with that, commissioners? Okay, so I'll make a motion, 6.2A8, to change it to read, prepare and maintain a 10, open parentheses, close parentheses, 10-year capital plan, comma, review with Board of Select Persons before annual submittal to the Board of Finance for its approval of such plan. Do I have a second? Okay, Commissioner Wackerman has seconded. Any further conversation on that? Wonderful. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's 5-0-0, Prue. Let me jump to number 5. This is 6.2A7. There was some robust discussion about, this is under the first selectman category, and this was about the delegation of authority. Now, I'm not quite sure these notes got to the heart of it, so I want to have a little conversation. So Selectman Vitale, as I remember, wanted to make it clear or make it a rule that the first selectman should delegate to a select person first and then to a town officer.
I don't think it was first or second. I think
Okay.
it was just, she wanted to make it clear that they could delegate to a select person,
Okay.
kind of have it out there.
I thought,
You said hierarchy.
I said, yes, thank
I was
you.
watching her body language, she didn't really, like, she
Okay.
didn't spark to that. Like, I don't think,
Perfect. Okay.
She just
I agree
wanted
with your
like, the
perspective.
first selectman to think of the select persons, I think, as
Right.
delegates, you know.
So or is totally fine.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, I think she would prefer it. But I don't think she was asking for like.
So, okay, good. I just wanted to make sure, because again, what I heard was, because she said things like, I think an elected official should have I'm not going to use the right words, but should have the first chance to represent the first select person rather than a town officer who could potentially, could not be.
I think that comment was more directed at something that was coming from the Board of Selectmen, like they approved it, and now there's gonna be like a Board of Finance meeting. And her point was, doesn't it make sense to have somebody from the Board of Selectmen standing in and advocating on behalf of the first?
Got it.
I mean, they're ex officio on the body anyway.
Right. Got it.
But I think it's a fine suggestion.
Okay,
But then we
good.
also determined that the Board of Selectmen aren't
They're not
town
officers, right?
Yeah, they're not town officer, yeah, right. So in principle, I don't think we have any problems with this, commissioners, right? You do?
I just moved to strike the word appropriate.
Okay,
Yeah, because someone could question whether it was appropriate, yeah.
okay.
So in trouble, you can look for it.
Right. So I'll make a motion, 6.2A7. Revise that sentence to read, have the ability to delegate such authority as may be necessary to a select person or town officers.
Town officers is still a defined term.
Yep.
Maybe it should be town officer singular since select person is, I don't know. Let's talk to you about that.
Such authority as may be necessary, it's like, delegate such authority or to a town officer? Is that-
Town officer.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll have the ability to delegate such authority as may be necessary to a select person or a town officer. Do I have a second? Okay, second from Commissioner McHenry. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
5-0-0, approve. That's,
Chris, you may want to just ask Judy.
oh, I'm sorry, Judy. Judy, if you have any comments on these, just read, what's that? Yes.
Throw a pen out.
Hold the vote.
Yeah.
What is it?
Hold the vote.
Hold the vote. Sorry, Judy, it's not intentional, I'm sorry. Number 6,
Our current version says appropriate. Just
Oh,
for the
yeah,
record.
that's-
it does,
oh.
Okay.
Yeah,
it does,
I think that's fair, because that is open for interpretation.
yeah. Number 6, 6.2A10. Now, this one, I'm not so sure the notes are right. So, Selectman Vitale wanted to completely eliminate 6.2A10, which those words were put in place, well, I thought they were put in place to make sure that after this passes, that the select person and the select persons have a tie back to the ordinances which say selectmen and select, first selectmen. This note says, incorporate similar language from 6.2C i.e. the Board of Select Persons shall have the power and duty vested and conferred upon the Board of Selectmen by the general statutes or by ordinance.
6.1C.
Yeah, 6.1.
Yeah, so because 6.2C is the first selectman, thank you, so you went right where I went. So the change should be 6.1C. Yeah, good, okay.
That is absolutely what we discussed. You're right. I didn't note that that was wrong in the minute here, essentially, the memo, but you're right. It was-
Right, okay. So, do we have any basic problem with this change, commissioners?
So
Two-
basically, that it would be the similar language, but for the select person.
Yes.
Yes.
Any comment from the public on this? Okay. So I'll make a motion to add to 6.1C. So the board of, doesn't it?
No, not
Doesn't it say that already?
No, we're using 6.1C, but using that
Sorry.
language to add it to
Sorry.
It's
6.2.
taking the concept from
Take-
6.1C.
And putting it on 6.2A.
6.2A.
Got it. That's what I was really confused.
That's what the
Yeah,
change
yeah.
is, because you can just, it is clear, it doesn't make sense to have 10.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Right.
A should just say that they have the powers vested in the charter upon a first selectman, as it set forth in the general statutes, and then for a selectman in the ordinances, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll make the first motion is to delete 6.2A10. I don't think we need that, right? All in favor of that?
Well, second it first.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Seconded by Commissioner Wackerman. All in favor?
Aye.
That's 500 approved. So now, we want 6.2A, after the word general statutes, I guess, to say the first select person shall have the powers and duties vested in and conferred upon a first selectman by the general statutes.
I have some suggested language, so
Okay.
for 6.2A, I think the intent was to have it read, the first select person shall have the powers and duties vested in the office by this charter, conferred upon a first selectman by the general statutes, and conferred upon a first selectman by ordinance.
I'll second what Phil just said.
Something like, I think that's pretty close to it.
Okay,
I like it.
good. I'm glad I wasn't the only one who was confused by that.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute, this says Board of Selectmen, but they're talking about the first selectman, so. Okay, I'll second, well, there wasn't an official motion, so can you second it, please?
I'll second the motion.
From the town attorney, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, who is making the motion?
I'm making the motion, Prue.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Wackerman is seconding.
Do we think we need to say conferred upon the first selectman or first select person by ordinance?
Yeah,
There are
Yeah,
I
none,
think
sure.
the statute doesn't say select persons.
or
but-
by ordinance.
right.
Right now, there are none.
Yeah,
Or presumably the ordinance is from the RTM.
Does it hurt to have it
I
in there?
would, I would.
Yeah.
Can't hurt to
Nothing
have it,
else,
right?
it sends a signal that we've revised it
Mhm.
and
Hmm.
we can only do what we could do.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
I think,
Same with
And then
statutes.
that way, if they promulgate ordinances in the future that say select person, then we're covered.
Right.
Right.
yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? I'm not keeping up on the screen there. Sorry about that, guys. No further discussion. All in favor of this change, say aye. 500 approved. I think that's everything under 6.2. So I'm going to go back to number 4, which is the chief operating officer. It's 914B. Upon the recommendation of Selectman Vitale and the Board of Selectmen, Selectman Vitale wanted to eliminate the ex officio role for, and I quote, on all boards, commissions, and committees, and just change it to on the RTM. So do we have, commissioners, do we have any basic issue with that update? Doesn't look like it, so I'll make a motion. 9.14B. The last sentence shall now read, the chief operating officer shall be an ex officio member, comma, without vote on the RTM. May I have a second? Commissioner Tressick seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? 500 approved. Thank you. Okay, number 7, 9.1B. 9.1B is the appointed officers and the qualification of such. Sorry, where are we? Yes. So this is my favorite paragraph that we point to that talks about the fact that we want a job description for every role here. Select Person Vitale wanted to add the language that the appointing authority, and if there is one, then they're included, and if there isn't one, then no need to be, is an approver of the job description.
Job description and then any update.
And then the update, right, yes, that's right. So commissioners, do we have any general issue with that comment? Okay, so I'll make a motion. 9.1B, let's see, I guess that's the first sentence. At the end of the first sentence, it's where it says, shall be prepared by the Director of Human Resources and approved by the first selectman. Add the words, and the appointing authority. And then at the end of the paragraph, and I guess I came up with these words, updates shall be approved by this first select person and the appointing authority.
I guess that works. I was gonna suggest to put it into the last sentence, because there's a statement about updates.
If you think if it's more eloquent somewhere else, please, I just scratched this down tonight, so I had something to make a motion against.
I just thought maybe adding at the end.
Two long
subject
sentences.
to the
It's a very
approval.
long sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, this can't be just 2 sentences, but it really is just 2 sentences.
Yeah.
That's coming from an engineer, so if an engineer's questioning English, you guys are in real trouble.
I'm trying to figure out if this vacancy occurs in the position or vacancy occurs in a position.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
I actually think I like your way of doing it better, but it's just such a long sentence.
Yeah, okay.
Lawyers always default to long sentences.
Yeah. Okay, did someone second this?
I don't know, did we do a motion or we were just
I
talking?
did make a motion, yes.
I'll second it. I
Okay,
don't-
Commissioner McCann, Commissioner McCann has seconded it.
Oh.
Is there any further discussion on this topic? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye, 500 approved.
And Chris, what was the language that you had?
At the end of the last sentence, updates shall be approved by the first select person and the appointing authority. Number 8, 4.1C. So this is the discussion about the RTM having the right to have legal counsel. Spirited debate about this, but I think good debate. We had added the fact that the RTM should be able to have its own legal counsel, but esteemed RTM membership, such as our own Commissioner Wackerman, wanted to put a little boundaries around it. So, First Selectman Gerber made a motion that the allowance to get a legal counsel would be a 77.5% affirmative vote of the full RTM membership, not just in attendance. So if there's 40 RTM members, that's 77.5% of 40 people.
Can we just say 75% just because?
I was gonna say, can we say 78, but I'm fine with 75.
Because it's a round number.
I guess the key is we were trying to.
We were trying to get
Oh, yeah,
31 of 40, right?
Because that's what Stanford has.
Right, so maybe 70. Yeah, well, yeah.
You know, in 10 years, everyone's gonna wonder where that number came
I
from.
know.
Somebody's gonna be sitting here 10 years from now, that,
It actually
this is gonna be the next 10%. Why
Right.
did that idiot DeWitt
large
propose
capital
77.5%? You know that's true, right? Somebody is gonna ask that.
Yeah.
Let's leave it at 77.5, because I wanna make everybody think about this.
Right, the history.
So,
And nobody ever tell anyone why. Oh,
Yeah.
we have a comment.
yes, please, Judy.
Comment, not about the 77, but presumably this would be on an RTM agenda. And it could be political if people don't want to be there to be counted among the membership.
Right.
They could boycott it. And
Oh, so you're saying they could never take the vote?
If there's
Well,
not
but-
enough people.
But that's, I think, the reason why towns like Stanford have this, because it requires the affirmative, not just who's there, but the affirmative vote of 31
understand,
members.
but,
Judy's saying if nobody just shows up,
If
But
somebody
they-
gets sick or something, then you don't have the vote.
well, at some point, somebody's gonna have to be, there's gotta be 31 of the 40 there for something. Oh, but it won't be on the agenda.
I was on the RTM
Will be on the agenda.
10 years, 12 years, and there was never 100%.
Well, I guess the goal is to make it rare. So you need to have enough people who want to do this, that they show up and they vote for it.
The difference is if,
It
you-
could
I
be
mean,
political, though, if
Oh,
they
it would
boycott.
be.
but the thing
We're not
is,
saying
it
that.
could be more political if you do it a different way. So I mean, the alternative way to do it is just say like 70, let's say you said 75%. So
I'm
then,
not questioning the percent. I'm
no, I
questioning-
know.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
just- I'm
we-
just
yeah.
it's round numbers.
Fewer people.
So then, let's say 21 people show up, that's a quorum. You could have 75% of 21
You're saying present and voting?
present and voting.
Because they
in
can't
favor.
vote if they're not at the meeting.
Right.
Correct.
No, but the point is that it has to be 77.5 of 40 people as it stands right now. So like Phil said, 21 people show up, 77.5% of that's 14 people, or if my math's right? Yeah. 14 people show up and like, yeah, let's go. No, it's gotta be
Now you've got-
31 people.
Now you have 14 out of 40 basically, making that decision, right?
Right,
So-
right. So, okay, and I don't believe the commissioners have any general issue with this, okay. So I'll make a motion. 4.1C, to add to the end of the sentence, these words. This required, so it says today, legal counsel, the RTM shall have the power to retain its own counsel. This requires an affirmative vote of at least 77.5% of the full RTM membership. If there's a more eloquent way to make it into the other sentence, please let me know.
Maybe upon the vote.
On the vote?
Yeah, what I had is upon the affirmative vote of at least 77.5%.
So we add upon so at the end of the sentence, so take the period away, upon the affirmative vote of at least 77.5% of the full RTM membership. Okay, do I have a second? Upon the,
A second, and then a question.
Commissioner Tressick, second.
So,
No, it says the same thing in parentheses.
Sorry?
no, so
As a
the-
clarification.
The question is, so in the charter, as it stands today, the 2006 charter, is the 40 membership defined or only
No.
the 56 max?
It's up to 56. That's why it's better to do a percentage and not a fixed.
Right.
Like Stanford did a fixed number,
Right.
but we can't, if we did that, I mean, there's nothing to say the RTM even needs to have 30 members. The RTM could, amend the ordinance and make themselves 20.
Right, and so.
Or they could make themselves 56. and then
So I guess
31
there's a
Easy.
first question, so the 40 is established by ordinance.
Yeah.
That's what I was
Yes.
trying to find it in there, so, and then, is full membership like a defined term? Like, what does full membership mean?
Full elected membership?
I know what it
I
means,
know.
but like,
Maybe
from
after,
a defining
Well,
in
we
the
could say,
charter,
we
what
could say
does
instead of
full
entire
membership
membership, we
mean?
could say of its voting members. I mean,
Okay.
you're concerned about the non-voting members aren't counted in the vote.
Well, no, it's more a matter, I mean,
You're,
like.
you're worried about what
is-
number you
what is
apply
full membership
77.5% to, yeah.
all of the members of the RTM, maybe? is-
Or it's the number of,
I like the
the
voting
number of
member.
representatives established by
I think
ordinance.
voting
at the time.
members is,
Well, no, but of its voting, but we don't want to say it like that because that can be interpreted as present voting.
Right, I think
I think entire membership is.
the full
counts as-
RTM membership? Is that what it, or?
the entire.
Oh, the entire,
I think
77% of the entire
the entire
RTM?
membership, I think.
Okay.
I think that
So strike the word full and put entire RTM membership.
And is membership
Ex officio.
role or
No, no.
person?
That's why I like vote.
So like there's a vacancy, someone moved
I know, but it's kind of
and left
implicit.
the RTM,
Vote, so-
Okay.
so there's 39 now.
So it would be 77.5% of 39 people.
If there's a vacancy,
Yeah, like what's the membership in that case? Is that 40 or 39 if there's a vacancy?
you could say, well, we could say the entire membership, including any unfilled vacancies. I don't know if you want to say that.
Well, 77% of one is, you know,
It's not really gonna get easier.
70 is not a person, so,
It's
yeah.
really get easier with vacancies.
Yeah.
Well, I guess my
No,
point is
no.
not to make like the quibble over that. I'm just trying to make it sure that it's clear we're talking about 31 essentially and not,
Yeah.
and not the, of, yeah, 22.
Well, I mean, but let's be clear, we're only talking about 31 because that's our baseline from.
Right.
Sanford, is it? Yeah.
And
So-
Newtown was 8 out of 12, so
Okay.
it's similar.
We derived the math from the 31, but like I said, I also would prefer the percentage because,
No, I know, I know I'm not trying to chip to 31. I'm just trying to make sure that we define what the denominator is.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you, yeah.
Make it clear.
I think entire RTM membership
There's
worked for me,
hardly ever a vacancy more than a couple weeks.
couple months, right, or a month, yeah, right.
Yeah, it gets filled really quickly, so I don't think you'd end up, it'd be weird to have.
They're a very
five
popular group.
people. It's the place to be, yeah.
I don't remember if oh, yes, I do have a second. I think, did you second
I
that?
think I seconded it.
Okay,
Yeah.
Commissioner Tressick seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye, 500 approved. Number 9, standard of conduct. This is section 11.6. This one, okay. So Selectman Vitale made a motion to revise this to provide that any ethics ordinance, and I'm quoting, cannot have lower standards than the standard of ethics in the charter. So I have 2 questions. One, what does lower mean? You know, and what is she pointing to in the charter for ethics?
The standards of conduct.
The standards of conduct,
Which
okay,
are 11.1 through 11.5.
right. And I'm with you on that one, except she said ethics, so should it,
That's what
she meant standard of conduct, okay.
I think we're gonna combine them.
Well, in the ordinance, we will, but she's worried that an ordinance down the road could be changed to make it like not very strong ethics.
She's afraid that an ordinance will dumb down what is in the chart. She wants to, I think what she meant was the charter's strong, it's got some strong language, and we don't want an ordinance come down that would dumb that down or minimize it, right? I think that was her intent.
So would that mean we'd have to keep the standards of conduct and the?
No, I think what I think she's saying that, well, I mean, I think there's one or two ways to go with this, is just, you could say, well, we recommend to delete 11.6,
Mhm.
and then you'll just have the 2 bodies of rules, and if the RTM wants to impose greater rules, you'll have greater rules. And that I think actually addresses her concern, because then the standards of conduct remains, and then you've got the ordinance.
Right.
Another way to do it is to limit the RTM's ability to supersede the standards of conduct by ordinance by adding some language that says, but not like this, but only if the standards of conduct imposed by the RTM are as stringent, or whatever the word is, as sections 11.1 to 11.5 of the charter.
See, that's kind of what, I made 2 notes to myself. I said, why can't we delete this, 11.6, right? Because then that takes away her words, lower standards, because again, I don't know what the hell that means. And frankly, I don't know what more stringent means.
Well, the thing is, I don't, it could be very subjective, I mean, you're right.
Yeah,
What was your first suggestion, Phil?
To just delete it.
Delete it.
Because because the Ethics Commission is empowered to enforce both the standards of conduct and an ordinance. So the power of the RTM to impose greater ethical requirements is, it already exists.
Right.
If you delete
Oh.
11.6, then there's no ability to supersede it with something that is
Right.
less stringent.
So the risk we have then is we will not be addressing the intent of 11.6 was to essentially remove any.
To have one body of rules.
Just one body, that's right, yeah.
So you'd still have, and the ordinance would have to be sure there's no conflict. I don't think we have anything about, let's see, penalties.
I think the charter, I mean, generally would take precedence over an ordinance, but,
Right,
Right.
that doesn't mean that the RTM couldn't impose greater
right.
requirements. So if the.
Which I don't
ordinance-
think
if the
anybody's
charter
worried about, I
says-
think they're worried about the lower.
I know,
Right,
but
right.
but I don't think, but the conflict, there wouldn't be a conflict, really.
Yeah,
No,
yes,
right.
Right, because there's always the
You would just
charter
have to
first.
follow both sets of rules.
Right,
I was sent a copy of this, as is, SESMA, the
Yeah.
ethics ordinance, and I said to her, do you have a red line copy? Because I wanted to compare the two,
compared to this, you mean?
compare the ethics.
Oh, to the charter?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's just a very different.
Totally different,
It's a
yeah.
totally different document.
She said she didn't know, she thought originally they had one, but I was trying to compare to see.
I thought it was brand new.
It is brand new.
Oh, so there's no red line because it's brand new, right? Yeah.
We didn't start with
Oh,
that.
you mean red line comparison against this? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Compare the two of them, the new one and the old one, with the conduct, the standards of conduct. And she said it wasn't, it was a whole new thing.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
But that was the thing on my mind, were they, comparable?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Compare them.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I think that's a
I'll
good idea.
throw it out there. I'll make a motion to delete.
I just have a question.
Yes, please, Joe.
Functionally,
Mhm.
we are adopting a new charter that at present has 11.6 in it.
It didn't originally.
Correct.
Yeah.
We're adopting a new charter that would have 11.6 in it because we were looking to have an ethics standard enumerated as an ordinance by the RTM. Okay? So now my question is, if that was our goal, then after passing of the RTM's ethics ordinance, do we have to go back, would we have to go back and revoke 11 of the charter?
No, what we're saying is we would keep it. We'd keep Article 11 except for 11.6.
Well, if 11.6 stayed in as we adopted, as we wrote it,
Yes, I think
and
we,
this passed to the public, what happens to Article 11
Nothing.
it was
Not,
gonna,
initially nothing.
until we have a new, until we have a new charter?
No.
Until you have a new
No,
charter.
it would only,
No, right, yeah.
So this is what would happen. Let's say the RTM passes the ordinance, the current ordinance, and this passes. They may pass around the same time, just as an example.
Right.
The two documents in play would remain the standards of conduct and the ordinance, because the ordinance does not invoke this provision, because this provision is not in effect yet. The RTM would have to go back and amend the ordinance a second time to say that they're gonna invoke this provision to supersede it, because we added that language about there's gotta be specific intent in reference to this section to supersede it. So it would require a second action by the RTM.
Okay.
First, this has to pass, then they could adopt an ordinance. The one that they're working on right now doesn't have this language because it's not in effect.
and actually, now that I think of it, the RTM ordinance will deal with appointed and elected officials. This applies to employees, everybody.
Yeah.
So really, we wouldn't want to it couldn't supersede all of Article 11. So
Right.
I do think taking out 11.6 is the right thing to do. And then the ordinance will apply to, some people, and this will apply to everybody.
Okay.
And what I like is what Phil pointed out on the Ethics Commission, that they are to quote, receive complaints alleging violations of the standards of conduct or any ordinance establishing a code of ethics.
Right.
And that's already in.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a new thing. What we had, we call it the ethics ordinance.
Because they called it a policy or
Um,
or code, and that was just confusing.
So we still have an enforcement mechanism.
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
And then if the RTM passed something that's in conflict with the standards of conduct, the standards of conduct would be enforced because
Well,
it's the
to-
charters.
But only if they're, I mean, They set the floor, so the RTM can always impose.
Yes,
greater
that's a fair
requirements.
point, yeah. If they said something's not a violation of a standard of conduct and the charter said it is a violation, then it's a violation.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I thought when we first discussed this, 11.6, we put this in here because we had really no idea at that time when when the ordinance was gonna happen. But it seems to be coalescing, but like you said, it could literally be in place before November, right?
I actually have to send you.
It could be.
stuff. Yeah, we're trying to do that because
Yeah.
we've been working.
We were also just trying to simplify in a way of like, rather than someone's wondering what the ethics, the quote-unquote ethics policy is, do they have to go to two places or one?
Yeah.
But that simplification apparently created a potential issue, so it's not that hard to say, hey, there's the standards of conduct and then plus whatever the RTM passes.
Now, I wonder if there's now an ethics policy for employees, which, was there
There
one
is.
before?
I don't know.
So should that be mentioned by the
No.
Ethics Commission too? Because they do a lot of stuff with employees' ethics complaints, right? And this just says standards of conduct and ordinance. Should it be in any ethics policy promulgated by Human Resources or any applicable ethics policy? Like theoretically, if it doesn't say that, maybe Ethics Commission doesn't have the right to.
I think they wouldn't.
Wouldn't that be like an internal HR matter?
It is, but the Ethics Commission also hears ethics complaints from HR for employees, I believe, right?
They can hear ethics complaints about its employees. I mean,
Yeah,
employees are subject to the standards of conduct.
but they're also
I'm
subject
just not
to-
sure what the implications of doing that would be.
Yeah.
Especially, and some of them are in unions.
Because could there
Let's
be
give-
things in the policy that aren't in the standards of conduct and yet they're being,
There's a lot in the policy that's not in
Yeah.
the standards of conduct, it's
Yeah.
true.
Oh, I see your point.
so the Ethics Commission, somebody could say, well, it doesn't allow you to listen to this complaint. You maybe have to think it through, but it's something we should maybe.
Let's give Phil 2 seconds to think about it. I think I made a motion, but if I did, I'll make it again. I'll make a motion to delete paragraph 11.6.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wackerman. I think, I don't mean to stop the conversation, but I think this is independent of this, right? You're-
Yeah.
Is there any further conversation about the deletion of 11.6? All in favor? Aye. That's 500 approved. So we're gonna delete that. Very good. Thank you.
But what you pointed out, Karen, is present, if it's an issue, it's already an issue. I mean, it's in the current
Right.
charter, it's an issue.
Right. So we should fix it now if we, except can we?
Well, that's the other thing I was thinking, I don't,
Yeah.
it's a little, I mean, it's somewhat related to the issue we were just talking about, but it's also somewhat
Yeah.
not related.
It's a little,
Yeah.
So I don't know.
it's a bit tangential, but
A little
I
bit,
mean,
but
I
also,
think.
but also, I could see an
It
argument that
grew
it's
out of the
related.
conversation.
Well, that's what I was just gonna say. It did grow out of that conversation, so.
I mean, I guess my question would be, if a town or employee is doing something that's unethical, that's not covered in the standards of conduct, it's probably something they can be fired for from a termination with cause. Type
Maybe.
of situation, so it's probably, that we can handle within HR.
Maybe, except we did the ethics policy with, I did it with HR
Yeah.
and with some other people. And they really wanted a policy so they could do this, so they could bring it to the Ethics Commission, I think. And it was,
Oh, really?
they wanted a written policy they could use for that too, so I don't know.
And I don't want to be, well, I don't think we should presume we're going to have with cause or without cause as of this
That's
point.
Yeah, true.
So,
And it may not rise to the
if we
level
tie it to
of hire
with
someone.
cause, I just want to caution that that's not done yet, right?
That is true. I guess I also think about conflicts of interest, disclosure of interest,
Yeah.
or lack of disclosure, I suppose, fair and equal treatment, and it's, well, I guess it's really conflict of interest is the key point here in this.
What is 11.1? mean, 11.1 tells you that you got to live up to ethical conduct, the trusted confidence, integrity of government. That about covers anything you could do wrong.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So conflicts of interest, that is the second part of it, but the policy is that you have to live up to the standard of ethical conduct to the end that the public may justifiably have trust and confidence in the integrity of government. If you do something which isn't covered under 11.2A through,
Yeah, right, exactly.
and, you know, we can, it's a catch-all up top, is it not, Phil, or am I wrong?
I see that more as just like a general expression of policy than a catch-all for, than a catch-all for like conduct that would violate the standards of conduct.
So if I don't do something enumerated in 11.2, but I do something which causes a loss of integrity in my position in town government, I can't be found to be in violation of the standards of conduct?
I mean, it's hard to see,
Like,
it's hard for me to think of an example where you'd be violating that first section and not violating one of the others.
Well, I'm gonna steal something from the town. That's not a conflict of interest,
I
right?
have
That has to be a violation of one of these.
I have an inappropriate relationship with an employee. You know, or something to that effect.
Well, I guess stealing would be covered under 10.
I was gonna say, wouldn't steal, if stealing's not covered on the standards of conduct.
Example 11.2C, that would be acquire a personal beneficial interest
Yeah.
But it's in a
of town
contractor
materials.
purchase order.
Oh, that it is, yeah.
Contractor purchase order though.
Oh, yeah, that's limited.
But also stealing is something that can be covered through normal personnel policies. Where someone.
Criminal
Or,
action.
well, I was just gonna say, or the law, right?
To removal with or without cause.
Article 11 is standards of conduct. 11.1 is a declaration of policy. Under the declaration of policy is the catch-all language of justifiably have trust and confidence in the integrity of government. 11.5 says the failure to comply with or any violation of the standards of conduct. So the standards of conduct are part of the policy. So it's, I mean, I'm not over reading it, but I think that it's a catch-all provision. If I'm charged with a violation of the standards of conduct under the catch-all phrase, I'm already in a bad position.
Yeah, that
So
would
if
would
my-
seem that,
if
right?
My defense is, you know, well, it's not enumerated in 11.2 A through E, you know, I'm still out the door. But I would think we're okay.
11.2A needs a closed parenthesis at the end.
I know, that's in the current charter.
Really?
I just was checking that,
Oh,
because I thought I made a mistake.
It's like, it says standards of conduct, but it's really just a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with that.
That's it.
That is
I
all
thought
it is.
everything in the current charter was.
Yeah.
So are we done
I
with this
don't
one?
know.
I was gonna say, do we,
What do you think, Bill?
I mean, I think you can do it. I'm trying to think if there's any unintended consequences to do it.
To add, the-
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, the other way to do it is it's part of the RTM ordinance, right?
No, it's not. It's,
Could be.
It could be, I guess, but we're leaving, it should be HR that changes it if there are any changes. So if we make it an ordinance, HR would have to come to the RTM with any, they update it if there's technology or something.
but that's a lot easier than changing the charter.
Sure,
Yeah.
that's true. I don't know, I feel like that should.
I feel like that's kicking the can a little bit, but
Yeah.
if we're intent on that message, but.
Well, the Ethics Commission shall receive complaints alleging violations of the standard of conduct for town officials, employees, town officers. Person making the complaint doesn't have to say, oh, it refers to section 11.2A or whatever, right?
I have an idea. Why doesn't the ordinance say that it's a violation of the ordinance for a town employee to violate the town's ethics policy applicable to employees?
Ooh,
Then it's covered in
Self-contained.
HR, and HR is a self-updating document.
Yeah.
much better.
Love it. And then I think this addresses the issue completely.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Can I make one? At the risk of sidetracking this, we put in language that's provided that no elected official may be removed from office. I'm sure that we meant as a result of that
Yes.
section, but it doesn't
It's not
say
clear.
that.
Which, where are we?
11.5.
Failure to comply with or.
And I realize it's very, very hard.
We don't have removal.
We don't have recall.
There can be a recall, actually, I think, but there's no removal of elected officials, right?
All I'm saying though is that, like,
Shall be
let's just say
grounds for
there's
removal
some
from office.
really egregious criminal behavior and somebody wants to bring, you know, what do they call it, you know, some sort of impeachment action or some sort of legal.
We don't
Yeah.
have that.
Yeah. This isn't Bridgeport.
No, we
Ooh,
have-
sorry,
we
I
have
said
the-
it out loud.
What I'm saying is we don't have, impeachment's not of local.
If we want to,
They don't have it
if we
either,
want
right,
to bring a
Jerry?
lawsuit, and as part of the relief, we want to get some sort of court order that person, that elected official can be replaced. I realize it's very, very rare, but wouldn't it be a sin for that person to point back to a charter and say, listen, your own charter says I can't be removed for any reason?
So like as a,
Oh, the opposite.
I mean, it's like a-
Yeah,
it's
the
like a- I was
backwards.
getting-
I was backward, yeah.
This is dealing with,
It's supposed to be dealing with just violations of this.
maybe as a penalty.
Of this.
well, it says.
It says of the
failure to
standards of
comply or Any
conduct.
violation of the standards of conduct established by this charter shall be grounds for the removal of office. I mean,
Yeah.
it
Okay.
says that. I think it's, I don't think, I think the, first of all, removal, I mean, we don't have impeachment or
Yeah.
removal for elected officials, local elected officials in Connecticut. And I think, but I think it is clear that it applies
It
to.
just applies to
violations of
this.
the standards
Okay.
of conduct. If there was some, penal law passed or something, this would not.
It would
this
supersede
not be a-
this,
It
wouldn't
would
it?
supersede like the local law, right? It wouldn't-
true.
There wouldn't be a defense,
Yeah,
right?
okay. Sorry about that.
No. Good comments.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll go on to number 10 of the Board of Selectmen recommendations.
Topic.
Board of 10, this is section 1014A, dealing with the Ethics Commission. There was a spirited discussion about the Ethics Commission and the fact that we had changed it from a unanimous vote to a majority vote. So, Selectman Vitale, to maybe bolster this a little more, changed the majority vote of the RTM to a 2/3 majority vote of the RTM. So do we have any basic issue with the change of the?
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
I don't know if it's necessary, but
I don't disagree with that statement, but I still like it.
I'll speak that to Karen's question. I think it's helpful because without that, some people may have a political posture to try to avoid the passage of the charter or parts of the charter. It would be
oh, the charter, okay.
as an overall vote issue.
Oh.
I think it would be hard for someone to take a position that they think that the public view of the integrity of the Ethics Commission having its own unanimous approval vote is somewhat watered down by a 2-3 decision, thereby being political in nature and picking cronies with only a majority of the RTM. By raising the level of the RTM, you at least give voice to maybe some people might think the hypocrisy of that position of the 3 versus 2.
And it's diluted, it's not as hard to get it through as it would be with, I can see that, yeah.
And I've always liked I think it made sense to move from unanimous to majority. But in the back of my mind, I always felt like, ooh, it exposes us a little bit. Exactly what Jerry was, as far as it like exposes us to criticism. And I never thought about the idea that moving the RTM to 2/3. I'm like, so I like it. I think it's a good way to make it clear that we're not trying to dilute, but we're trying to ensure that the process can run smoothly.
Having been put out there, if we take it away, we give voice to the opposition.
Yeah, that's true.
I
Use
agree.
77.5 instead.
We talked about that. Don't think they didn't talk about it, Brian, believe me. Yeah. Yes, Commissioner McHenry, I completely agree with what you're saying. And if some people would have us believe that the process has been watered down, at least this is the rebuttal to, well, you may think one part of it's been watered down, but now you've got, 2/3 of 40. Well, that's this isn't the full body, but still, yeah.
I can
So.
see that, I agree. I think that makes
Okay.
sense.
I think that's a good comment. One other thing that, the Board of Selectmen, remember, will decide what the ballot questions look like.
Yep.
And certain things, like this might be perceived as controversial, the Ethics Commission in general, so that might end up being a separate ballot question. So,
Right.
But that's up to the Board of Selectmen.
So I think our commission doesn't have any general issue with this recommendation anyway, right? So I'll make a motion on 1014A to change the words and confirm by majority vote to 2/3 majority vote of the RTM. Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Wackerman is the second. Are there any further comments, conversations, discussion? None seen. All in favor?
Aye.
500
I'm going
Prue.
to abstain.
Oh, sorry, I apologize. 401 Prue. Commissioner McHenry has abstained, Jesus Christ.
Okay,
Sustained.
and I'm sorry, who was the second?
Abstain.
Abstained.
Karen was the second.
Karen was the
Thank
second,
you.
sorry. Yes, sorry. Okay. Now I'm gonna go to number 1.
Yeah.
And I have a couple, I have a couple comments on this, so I'll just share all my stuff, then I'll let it out to the commission. So, First Selectman Gerber made a motion to remove, so everywhere in the charter where we added without, that an employee could be removed without cause, to change that to with cause. Let me just get a couple things here. I don't, just right off the bat, it just as one of 7, I don't agree with this. I did a little bit of, so I started calling a couple people I know. I was telling Jerry before I walked into our HR department, and I said, what do you think about this? And they went, are you freaking kidding me? You should never do that,
Oh.
And I was sharing with him, we had
I mean, at your work, not that
at my
you were
work,
here.
and
Okay.
I tried to, I just said, what would this mean if this happened to you? And we had a case where we had a very, very tough time getting someone that had clear cause, and we couldn't get rid of this person for 9 months. It's a really bad situation. So I did a little bit of, I did a little Google surfing, and I just want to read a couple things. This one was particularly interesting to me. In Connecticut, proving with cause for termination, especially in a wrongful termination lawsuit, can be challenging. What constitute with cause termination in Connecticut? Termination with cause means an employer has specific justifiable reasons for ending an employment relationship that it can include gross misconduct, this is theft, harassment, damaging company right, insubordination, refusal to follow instructions, theft or fraud, breach of confidentiality, leaking company secrets, alcohol or drug abuse, violation of safety rules, criminal conviction, poor performance, right, which is what, we've kind of been playing with the fact that this is gonna, and Commissioner Treshik and I had a separate conversation, that to have this with cause without saying something like based on performance reviews or something like that.
Essentially require
No
annual
teeth.
performance reviews.
Right.
It shouldn't be in the charter, but
Yeah.
Right. So that gave me a little pause. This is another comment from, this was an interesting website. This attorney, it was like a question and answer session. He said, generally speaking, in Connecticut, proving with cause for employment termination or evictions can be challenging, as it requires demonstrating a justifiable and legal reason. In employment termination, proving willful misconduct requires showing that the employee's actions were deliberate and violated established workplace rules and procedures. So for me, this gives a little pause because we don't have job descriptions, as we all know, for everyone, right? Having thorough documentation of the events and reasons for the with cause is essential for proving any claim. So, and I've got some other stuff in here, I won't bore you with everything I found. But this is another, by this Lynn Marks research, this was very interesting. It was a Connecticut dismissal of employees.
State employees, in other words?
You asked for background information about at-will employment in Connecticut and other states, but this person basically talks about Connecticut. There's just some information there, but anyway, so in general, I'm really worried about changing everything to with cause. Again, just my opinion. The reasons that the Board of Selectmen said they don't like without cause because they were afraid we weren't going to get good people would shy away from this. This is what exists today. And if you're employed by the town today and we don't change this charter, guess what? You can be terminated without cause today at will. So I don't think this is a really good change to make.
so clarifying question on what you just said. Are you saying that rather than changing from without to with, you would say just go back to 2006 language? Is that what you're saying?
Well,
I'm trying to make sure.
let me answer because I've been
Because that's kind of where I would go.
I've been running around this in my head for, I've been saying for 8 months that this is broken because of a bunch of things that our town attorney has told us. I feel today, we'd be better off the way the charter is today, rather than going to with cause.
Right, that's kind of where I was going.
I would hate to default back. I'd rather see without cause, frankly, or terms. Or justifiable terms that make people, because if everybody's worried about the fact that no one's gonna come work here without cause, I spoke to 2 other people, not within my work, and they both said to me, oh, so you're giving them employment for life. And I was like, how did you come to that conclusion, right? They said, you know how hard it is to fire somebody for cause? You go, most of the time, a company like we work in, they weigh that, right? You know what? I really don't like this guy, but Jesus, it might cost me $20 million to get rid of him, so I might as well keep him around for the next 5 years. And right, so.
Or just wait for the reorganization when.
Or wait for reorganization, then he can eliminate his job, right? I mean, please, Commissioner.
There doesn't appear to be the political will to support our end of this conversation. the public comments that we received were, as far as I was concerned, typical of today's world where people make reference to, well, I've taken a poll, was one of the quotes. I've polled this and I've polled that. Now, you know, you can sit there and listen to someone say that, and you can decide, as I did, well, I'm not gonna challenge that person because why do that? But who the hell did you poll?
Yeah.
And why am I supposed to believe your poll?
Which is exactly what I did, so.
As a taxpayer, you know, if someone were to ask me what's up with the charter, I'd say those people are crazy because they've just made everybody a contract employee for life in the town of Fairfield, and that's not what I want as a taxpayer. The reverse of what the political parties or the political people involved here are trying to avoid could turn out to be a storm in the opposite direction.
I completely agree.
And it all relates, in my view, to the one position that's in the charter now that we would have been changing, as in the fire department. And I love the fire department. I think the fire department are great people. The fire department have done wonderful things for my family. I don't have any axe to grind against anybody in the fire department. But the point is that's where I see the juice coming from, and that juice filtered out to other department heads. This is my personal perspective. But that's the problem now that our Board of Selectmen are dealing with, what they're hearing back. And I don't know if we can fix the holes in the dike.
I do feel like if we keep it as is, that will be changed at the Board of Selectmen level, is my sense, that
They can't change.
they delete, they can delete.
Oh, you
that
mean if we
change.
keep it as without cause?
Yes.
Oh, we don't,
they can-
yeah,
right.
that's second through.
Yeah, so it's almost a
Yeah.
moot point, but
But we could
Well-
choose to not change, not revise 2006.
Yes.
Choose
And then
not
it
to
just
revise.
stays.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's
Well,
true.
I mean, moot, and that we know, we're presuming to know the answer,
That's true.
but not moot in that we would be taking a position as a commission.
That's true too.
And that was, I got a long speech from a former elected official today. He said, he goes, you might not be able to kill this, but you have to send a message to them that this is not the right thing to do. And I said, well, I've already done that. We've already put it in a recommendation, you know.
Has anyone sought an opinion from the town attorney, government-wise, as to the firestorm not the firestorm, the problem that this proposed charter makes from a human resources point of view?
Your proposed charter or the recommendation from the Board of Selectmen?
Well, the recommendation from the Board of Selectmen.
No.
So they're blind.
I think that
Yes.
well, I don't know about if they're blind. I think that they know what removal for cause means.
I think
Well-
I think a couple of things, like number one, I wonder if, as far as like the general public goes, if that perspective is lost, that we remove the terms, and that's why that was a large impetus for putting in this new language, number one. Number two, I worry that simply with this proposed language is really well thought out, because the first thing that strikes me is, well, why, if that's what you want to accomplish, why would you even need to put that in?
Why do you think that?
Why would you need to put in with cause? Because anyone in America could be fired for cause,
Right.
right? Like if it was silent,
Right.
you could still fire them for cause. I just think there's just so many layers to this, like, you know, I mean, there's, for certain, Chris and I talked about this earlier today, for certain government employees, there's a protected property interest. There's a Municipal Employee Relations Act. There's a complaint procedure to the Department of Labor that's available for, there are so many layers of protection. If you're gonna add another one, deliberately add another one, and I'm not saying this because, I was a municipal employee, I'm not saying this because I wanna make it easier to get rid of municipal employees. I'm just saying this because I wanna make it reasonable. I wanna make it so it's a workable solution for everyone. You know, I just think also, the other thing, practically speaking, with, if you are to add that language or just leave it for a clause, then you're gonna have to have an entire, I would think that you would have to have an entire procedure in place, including annual reviews. You know, I just don't know
Job
that,
description.
practically speaking, that all those mechanisms are even in place.
And that's one of my major, that was one of the reasons I read that, because of the list of things that you could be fired with cause. I don't think we're tracking a lot of these things right now, you know? And, you know, you gotta have pretty robust job descriptions. If we wanna fire Phil for something and his job description doesn't say, you know, I don't know what, you know? You know, I don't know. It's a slippery slope at best for me, right?
Have you been up to the DOL? I mean, man, I'd love to share some stories. I don't think I can, but, I mean, you know, a lot of attorneys, and you know, I'm biased, obviously, because I'm a town attorney, but a lot of town attorneys, you know, say it's not, you know, they don't call it the Department of Management for a reason, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
they protect the employees' rights. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying we all just need to be cognizant of that.
Yeah.
We just can't be blind to that. There are a lot of procedures in place that will protect these folks. And the other thing, that's the other thing that we discussed earlier today, is that, and I had a department head call me to speak to me about this. And the one thing that I said to him was, you know, the other thing that we had contemplated, we had discussed, is the possibility of employment contracts. Employment contracts, I personally think you should have an employment contract for just about every department head. And that would lay out exactly what their rights are, whether they're subject to annual reviews, whether, you know, that they have a contract period, whether at the end of that 2 or 3 year contract period, whether they can just simply be not renewed, and that non-renewal will not count as any sort of termination for or without cause. It's neutral. It's your term has ended.
What did Norwalk have, or does Norwalk have, since you worked there?
A mixture of all those things. Yeah. I mean, they had charter that specifically said that these 4 or 5 positions served at the pleasure of the mayor. And the mayor can release them whenever he or she deems appropriate. There were some positions that had terms, and those terms would have to be renewed, and so the mayor may elect to not renew that term. I think that is exactly the point, though. Like, I don't know that the general population has realized that we've taken away those terms.
Right.
So that we're kind of like making up for what we're removing. So to Eric's point, at minimum, I think we at least have to go back to what
The old language.
we had.
Yeah,
The
Remember,
2006
a lot
language.
of a lot of that column was blank.
yeah.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
everybody had
And that was, and that
And
was.
that's why we did what we,
creates-
and that's why we
That
did what
creates
we.
part of the, like. what gets
Right, but if they're not-
Controversy about like, well, how is it fair that he has a term and I don't, right?
That, and also, I mean, is there, like, what does it mean when that column's blank?
Right,
Yeah.
but,
And,
but then boom.
and that was the crux of the issue. I mean, when you told us three town attorneys, 3 opinions, 3 different opinions. So,
But I would say we're not willing, at least I'm speaking for myself, I'm not willing to essentially grant them tenure or whatever you framed it, employees for life or something. The board has clearly said they're not willing to essentially renew the term every 4 years.
well, have they said that?
I don't think they
Yeah.
said that.
I think-
Well, they kind of,
I think,
I don't think
I think some people have said they don't like the idea of there being a term because it's,
Like, it's awkward to have to like reappoint people every 4
I'm
years.
gonna go back to what Jerry said. Where are you getting this data from? Because if you're walking around town hall and asking, hey, you're the chair, hey, Jerry, do you want to have to?
Labor, Department of Management.
Right, exactly
What do you
right.
wanna have?
Hey, Jerry, you want to have to reapply for your job every 4 years?
I've surveyed all the
No.
department heads, and none of them like this.
Yeah. When I was working on the purchasing policy, and certain people in the town hall, whatever, said, I don't like this. And I said to the first selectman at the time, I said, if everybody likes the purchasing policy, it's a lousy policy. Because that means people are getting away with something. So I'm not saying that everyone can't love this, but, you're never gonna satisfy everybody,
Chris, do you want to take any, we have Prue wanted to talk.
Sure. Oh. Go ahead, Prue. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about other public comments, but go ahead, Prue, please.
Well, being a town employee, I would like to discuss this topic. I am also a union employee. And as far as I understand, we cannot be fired for no reason because we have an option to bump. So will this policy be for everyone, or is this just for department heads? I mean, there is a lot of talk. I've heard tons of people talking about it. And, has anyone discussed it with employees or with, maybe that doesn't matter. I don't know. But, sometimes there's a case where the climate is that people are insecure with their positions and with their jobs. And I don't want to talk too much, but I think this is what the issue is right now.
Well, I think what you said is a very welcome comment.
Yeah,
I think this is helpful. It's informative.
I guess, Prue, the specific question around the union piece, we had proposed, well, in our red line, we have added language in 3.6B, the last sentence, that specifically states that the removal of any town employee shall be subject to or any collective bargaining agreement that may pertain to the town employee. So absolutely recognize and support any existing union agreements in that specific portion of your question. And I definitely echo what Jerry said, Ron. Thank you for the more personal perspective too.
So I guess having said that, it really does
That's a
target.
contract. And
Right, it really
we
does
can't
target-
supersede
Right, we can't supersede a contract.
contract.
Yeah. So.
And that's what I'm saying about the other contracts, like if that's the case, if what everyone's saying, the difficulty, because let's address the actual criticism, we won't be able to retain or attract talent.
Right.
Not true.
That's exactly my point, right.
You could, that person, like, let's just say it's a CFO and you're trying to attract somebody from New Canaan, they got a really good CFO. And they would just say, well, listen, I'd have to possibly relocate. I'd have to be assured that I could have a job for 3 years. I'd have to be assured that I have the same level of benefits. You sign a contract.
Here's my contract.
You sign a contract.
You're right.
And then you're assured all those
I
things.
want to make sure I'm clear on, so what in the existing charter, there were some terms, but as you pointed out, a lot of them didn't have terms. So for all of the ones that didn't have terms, they were essentially fireable without cause, right?
No.
Yeah.
But no?
No.
That's a different
The
interpretation.
default
That
under
was the-
hold on, but the default under the charter is that if someone is not removable without cause, that they're only removable with cause.
Okay,
So there's only like 4 positions that were removable without cause. So all of the other positions, and it's like town attorney, assistant town attorney, town treasurer,
Treasurer, yeah.
and economic development. Those 4 are removable without cause. All the other town officer positions are all with cause, because that's the default. And the term section, the term column is blank. There is that section 3.3 that refers to, says that officers serve for the length of the term in 3.3, which has been interpreted to mean that your term expires in 4 years. It's also been interpreted to say that, and I think a lot of the people have held positions
Coincident with a
believe-
new selectman.
Yeah, but it doesn't, I mean, I think a lot of people also have believed that these are essentially lifetime appointments, and they're supposed to go across administration. So there's been that.
Is that the confusion of the different opinions that have come up? Is that language? I'm forgetting this, I'm sorry.
3.3 can be interpreted different ways.
Yeah.
Right, I think it's been interpreted different ways.
So, yes, Julie, please.
Sorry, I've been in town for 50 years and involved in the town for 50 years, and over that time, I know about half a dozen people that were fired for cause. I don't know any that were fired without cause, and many of them stayed most of the time that I was here, like Tom Stanky came about the time I did, he just retired a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, and Frank Daniels was here a long time, and Jack Sullivan.
Mhm.
And because they were doing their job.
Yeah. My personal opinion is this has absolutely nothing to do with the practical application of letting people go or not. This is all optics. I mean, the town attorney just said the default today is with cause, right? So putting it down on paper maybe makes people feel better. Well, you know.
Well, that's where I think optically, if I weren't on the commission and then I read that essentially we're giving everyone tenure,
Oh, yeah.
I'd vote against it.
Yeah.
We had this conversation today, and I had this conversation with Karen. You know, being in the position, I put us in the same position, being in town government for so long, it's hard to act like an outsider, right? Because you know kind of the everything that goes on. But if I think to myself, if I'm just regular taxpayer and somebody who could have political reasons for doing it says, hey, everybody's getting a job for the rest of their life because of that charter revision commission. Man, people would be saying no to everything, whether they like that one question or not. That's my real fear, because again, let's remember, one of our goals is that we have to put out a piece of paper that's going to actually pass a referendum.
And I think in practice, it's not like suddenly people are going to get fired all over the place because
Right. No.
people are doing their job. So it's not like, I guess there's a worry that a new first selectman could, clear the deck and have all new people, but that most sane people wouldn't do that because you need all that institutional knowledge. So even though there's fear, I think there may not be,
Basis for fear?
A basis. Yeah, I think so. I think
Yeah,
it's,
right.
if you're doing your job, it's almost the same as with cause. Like if you're doing your job and you're valuable, nobody wants to fire you.
But, you take Prue's comment. Now, Prue is a member of a union, a collective bargaining union.
Right.
But what she's expressing to us is that within people she talks to who probably or may be in union employees, there's an insecurity
Right.
that is being generated because we're having a conversation that frankly has nothing to do with union employees.
Right.
These are
But
people-
it's outside the union as well.
Okay, and so someone who's outside the union that doesn't have a job contract or a job description, then this would be relevant to them. And then those people now are expressing a concern. What was the status of those individuals before this came up? The status was they could be fired at will if they don't have a contract.
Not, right?
No, I mean, the default for the positions under the charter, the current charter is that it's with cause. That's the
That's
default.
only for positions.
Yeah, well, this language that we're talking about only applies to these
This
positions.
is only for the
The
senior people.
People that are not in the union and are not town officers, they're only, unless they have a contract, they're at will.
They're at will. I mean, that's what I'm saying to Prue now.
Oh, I see what
Yeah,
you're saying.
I see.
Yeah. So, right, there's a body of people that this does not apply to, and they're not part of a union, right? and they're-
This is a selected group of people,
Right.
an identified group of people that we're talking about that this has reference to.
Department heads that aren't in unions, essentially.
Department heads that aren't in a union.
I mean, not technically, but that's broadly the comment,
And
okay.
the other thing that may be lost in the message is that, like, I think one of our themes, maybe it wasn't collective, but I'd like to think that we sort of, spoke where we needed to, where it was necessary, and we sort of deferred to other authorities where we thought appropriate, like with the HR department, right? With the job descriptions. So maybe part of this is a public information campaign going wrong, where people are looking at this as like, well, you're just trying to get rid of employees, I think, or take away these securities. But what we're really, I think, what we're really trying to do is leave it up to the appropriate people, whether it be through contracts, whether it be through annual performance reviews, whether it be through whatever mechanisms. We're just trying to leave it like, and the other thing I think we're struggling with too is like not trying to do like a wholesale revision. Like, I mean, ideally, I think this is probably uncontroversial proposal is like, ideally, we would like have some rule in effect that would make the HR department do annual reviews. And if someone scored well on their annual review, of course they would have a job the next year. And if they didn't, then they maybe would get a letter. And then maybe after like 2 letters, you would get another review. And if you didn't pass that 3rd review, maybe you would be considered for termination, like something like that. But that's the type of, I think, the type of micromanaging that we tried to avoid in this charter.
Right.
Well, I don't think we could, Mike, I don't think we could even put that. That would be a first selectman's, have to push that down to HR. That, again, that's why I love the reference to job descriptions, because it forces to do job descriptions. Now, I don't feel that putting with cause forces them to do anything. Even if we tie it to a performance review, which you and I talked about, I don't feel like it forces them to, to do that. And without that, from that list I read, there's absolutely no basis.
But I think changing without to with, and all the different references we have is a nightmare from an optics perspective.
There's a whole bunch of problems with
Maybe
that.
it should be.
So that's why I would just revert to 2006.
Let me just ask this stupid question. Phil, if we defaulted back to,
Ruth said she loves performance reviews. Thank you, Pro.
on 1.4,
Well, it's
so
true.
it's really 1.4B, right? This is the existing charter, right?
Yeah.
In 1.4B, there's a couple roles that have term. So if we just struck those 3 jobs that have the time limit on it and did nothing else and took all that reference that we had without, out of,
Yeah.
does that mean, doesn't that automatically defer everyone to with cause, without a term?
No.
No.
And it go to 3.6 or whatever the number was again.
Well, so it goes to, well, you just put those same people into that situation of, what does 3.3 mean? Does it mean that the term ends when, the first selectman or board of selectman term ends? Or does it mean something different? And then, there are still those positions that are without, that are removable without cause, like economic development.
Right.
So, it's just the one, really.
I mean, I'm looking at the current charter. I'm just gonna pick fiscal officer, there's no term in here. So today, if we wanted to get rid of the fiscal officer, it would have to be with cause.
Correct.
Yeah. The building official has a 4-year term. So we can't get rid of him. We can get rid of him with cause, or every 4 years, we can make him reapply for his job. I mean, that's what this means, right? So I guess I don't understand, if we just took those 3, building official, conservation commission alternative, we took those terms off, why that doesn't default to with cause? Without saying it.
But, so the charter already says that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm basically going where you're going is.
Why not, why even just change the terms at all?
Right, but, so the thing is, you have, so
You just leave everything the way it is.
3.3 says that they serve for the term as set forth in 1.4B, and then most of them are blank.
And if there is no term, then there's nothing to point to.
Yes.
Therein the problem.
Jason and I noticed that when we
Right.
were looking at different ways to address some of the Board of Selectmen comments.
But if they're
That
not
should
willing
be
to put in
addressed
Yeah.
term,
As part of this. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we can.
I don't think
given
we've
the
gone
background.
down that road yet. So,
Okay, that's
so
fair.
here's where I'm at, and I'll just throw it out for the commission to debate. I'd rather have the next discussion be that we put terms in for everyone. And not have any with or without cause mentioned in each individual, job description.
But I think the terms weren't really being respected anyway, according to.
Well, they're not in there. There's nothing, this is what we're talking about, and it's only those 3 people that have terms. So if we change them all to 4 years, just as an example,
But I think the selectmen said it's very awkward and not always done that even these people
Right.
get re-upped. So they'd have to do
okay,
this for everybody?
but guess what? Be in compliance with the charter, that's why it freaking
Yeah.
exists.
What's less awkward is causing insecurity amongst all the other people in town hall that think that we're talking about them.
Yeah.
Right.
And threatening their jobs, when we're not threatening anybody's job. We're just trying to bring a charter into compliance. So if you enumerate 25 different people and give them a term, then the discussion can't be sidetracked to people
200 people.
who are coming to work every day from 8 to 4 and 9 to 5 doing their job.
Yeah. and
We're not
worried
talking about
their-
you.
Right.
So the one, from outside looking in, the risk in that is, and I don't fully agree with what I'm saying, but I think the risk is like people point to that and say, now you've politicized it. And you made a point, Jerry, that like the first selectman's always smart enough not to come in and fire everyone.
Right.
But in theory, like, maybe they are.
Well-
Like, someone's gonna come in and fire everyone because now the terms are, well, they're not firing, they're just letting the terms expire.
Right.
That would be the,
Then we elected an idiot. Right? I mean,
We did that already.
Judy was just talking about 50 years in town. How many first selectmen have come in and fired everybody? Nobody.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have to be an idiot. I mean, there's some people that go automatically. We get that. But, there's good people working in town. Like you said, Stanky, right?
Frankie,
He didn't stick around for 40 years because he wasn't doing his job. He was doing a great job.
Frank Daniels was here when I came, and he retired. Most of the people retired. But, see, Sullivan hired a lot of people that he knew or were recommended to him, so he was kind of beholden to them. But the first time he had a problem, he had to fire somebody.
Well, but you know what? That's to be, that's gonna happen.
It's in the tax office.
I'm trying, sorry, go ahead,
No, I'm
Commissioner.
interrupting you.
No,
The guy was gambling with our money.
oh, geez.
Did he win?
Was he paying us back? I mean, no.
And that's it. That's the delicate dance, is
Right.
like trying to put enough authority in here that you can get rid of the guy that's gambling.
Right.
That's, I think a lot of this is just public information gone wrong. It's
Yes,
just,
I think it is a description, like you said, it's a way.
no one is
That's it.
trying to remove any town officer.
I think the
I'm-
burden, though, on the selectmen, the Board of Selectmen, I mean, it's not a huge burden, but they have to remember every 2 or 4 or whatever years to reappoint all of these people.
we've given them a chief of staff. We've entitled them to have a chief of staff, they can do that. Hello?
Hello.
So, but I was gonna say, what if we did like more of a sense of the body here and say, look, we're not willing to give everyone tenure. We're like, if that's the request, we're going back to 2006 language. We'll consider 2006 or 4-year terms. And use it to really drive a conferring session,
Right.
what we're required to do.
But 2006 was, a lot of the people were without cause.
I agree.
Yeah.
But I think,
I mean, we're with
Without
cause.
saying it.
I think
No, they
putting
were
in
with
with
cause.
cause is worse
Right.
than the 2006.
I think putting the
But-
terms on works.
No, but like, say in the first one, the first selectmen appointed ones, there were only 3 or 4, right?
There were 3.
And as Phil's been saying, the rest of them were without cause.
With cause, right.
With cause.
So
Just by
There's
virtue
only
of,
one
except for
employee
the,
position.
yeah,
So
right.
if we revert to what was there, then we're really saying,
Or without
okay,
cause,
it's
right?
only with cause.
I agree.
Well, not in
Yeah,
fact.
but the public relations, like, you can't then, from a public perspective, say, hey, the charter commission's giving everyone tenure.
Yeah.
There's,
If we wanna
there's,
fold,
there's two things
yeah.
here for me, right? There's the practical aspect of this, and then there's the, I gotta make this pass in November.
Yeah.
And I think when we say with cause, that it won't pass.
I agree.
I had 2 calls today saying, you're unbelievably ridiculous to think that this is gonna pass, Chris. Seriously,
Wow.
yeah.
I agree.
Two former elected officials are like, this will not pass
With, like, if we say with cause.
with cause. To watch the meeting and,
Yeah,
yeah. But so,
so that is.
So I'm with you, you know, we can kind of get what, and that was kind of where I was going, right? My sensitivity was gonna be, what about putting in terms? But if we want to be even more parochial and say, what do we think about just keeping it as it is, 2006? We take a sensitive body.
I guess I didn't, well, I was kind of more saying like, it's
Give
either
everybody
either
the
or. Like, do we, I mean, because I do
Oh,
think.
you want to give 2 options?
Well, I think that this is an area where I think it would be good to confer with the board,
Yeah.
because we think, obviously, we liked what we proposed, that's not getting through, okay. We think what they're proposing will not get through the public, and we also don't like it.
Right.
And so we either say just, hey, go back to status quo,
Yeah.
or Bill did ask us to like fix the terms.
Yep.
And say, if we're gonna fix the terms, then we're gonna add 4 years down the line. And let's have that conversation.
So select person vitality, if you haven't figured it out yet,
I'm sure
we've gone through every recommendation you guys have made with the exception of with cause and without cause. I started the rally that I think with cause is not anything that'll pass, right? And now we're at the what's next solution. I think what Commissioner Treshik is getting to is maybe we come up with 2 options to bring before you. And maybe those options, being a little presumptuous, but one is just leave it the way it is. And that would mean that 3 positions appointed by the selectmen have terms and all the rest don't. And what that means in all practicality, as far as our town attorney says, is that they can be fired with cause. Even though it's not written that way, that's the practical aspect of
Well,
it.
it is written that way in 3.6.
It is, yeah.
Oh, 3.6, yeah, well, that's right, yeah. So that's the practical aspect of it. That, for me, takes it off the ballot for all intent and
Yeah, it
purposes.
does.
And it doesn't enumerate it in which line, which I think could be devastating to the overall passing of the charter. And then the other one, which I'm frankly a little more in favor of, because is everyone has to have a term. And not everyone's gonna love this, but you know what, Prue shared with us a few minutes ago that there's a lot of angst among people who are even unionized employees who think we're really trying to affect them. And they might not understand that there's a clause in here that says, if you're in a union, this doesn't affect you, but it's not getting through to some people, right? So that's where we're at. I just wanted to catch you up on this, but
No, and I coming back from the chamber event, and I just wanted to see if you guys were still meeting. Attending is just not necessarily to
and
participate.
then I just slammed you as soon as you walked in the door, right?
I don't want to, and I don't think it's appropriate for me to give comment on this.
Oh, no, I don't want you to, I'm just
So
trying
I
to.
understand, I
One of us
appreciate
at the
being,
table with.
I appreciate being caught up.
Yeah.
The one, I mean, to say before we move to any type of vote, the one thing I did want to bring up is we've created the COO position. So I think we have the right to say that's one is without cause if we'd like. And actually, I think that you could make an argument that the COO could be viewed as more tied to the first select person, i.e. more political, you could call it that. That I would look at that closer to like the town attorney, that we
Consistent.
should make that a without cause. It's just a new position. So that's the one thing I would just say before we like move to like, hey, a blanket statement. I think we should reconsider that. We should consider that one.
Because the COO will come under this list here.
Yeah, it's
The COO is in that list now, right? Under 1.1 1.4B.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's
Well,
right.
this is
Oh, the original,
this is
yeah.
the charter.
Yes.
I think it's weird though to take into consideration like, oh, well, because we created it, we could, like, I don't know, it just seems.
Well, there are, no, but the
it just
town,
seems like-
I
It just seems like a
But
cop
you
out.
also, but you also created the WPCA manager position, and that's a different type of
We're,
position.
but we're a constitutional Congress, like, we shouldn't think of it as like, oh, well, because we created this, that means we could,
But I think your other
we could revise
reason-
the whole damn thing if we want.
well, okay, fair.
I
But
think
there's
fairness,
not-
I think
there's not
fairness is
price.
what should control,
Yeah.
not precedent, not what we created, not what license we have. I think it's fairness.
Well, maybe my
And I
point
love
there
Jerry's
is that-
idea. If everyone got a term, that's fair.
That's fair.
Right, I guess my point is, if we go back to 2006, to the charter, there is no reference to the COO. So we would have to make a choice to add a term
Oh, so that's a fair,
or to,
that one, we have to make some
we have to make a
decision.
choice on the COO is my.
We either leave it blank,
Yeah.
which would
And I
be,
think your
which would be
reason-
kind of crap.
And I see it,
That's a good
That
point.
it's-
Closer
that
to the
it's-
town attorney.
That reasoning, I think, is a good.
Yeah, no, that, so, it's, and the new WPCA person doesn't fall under here, right? That
Yeah.
doesn't,
But-
We
well,
have
I
to-
mean, she falls into that as a
under,
position.
under B, under appointed positions of the first selectman.
It's not a first selectman
It's
appointment.
board.
So that's board of selectmen, so that
But
would,
it's still an appointed position that could have a term in that section.
did we remove
Where is
B,
it?
did we remove B2 terms too?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. Well, these are all
We're on that
boards.
These are all
retirement
boards.
removal, whatever, kick, right?
Yeah, yeah, well, these are boards and commissions.
Well, because you guys decided that why list the term there, the term is stated elsewhere in the charter.
Right.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
different
right.
thing.
We're saying it so many times. I think you guys actually.
We didn't want to say it in
You
three
guys were
places.
thinking about, this is kind of like a summary, this beginning part, and you guys are thinking about getting rid of it entirely.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was my recommendation,
Yeah.
because it really is confusing. You look in one section, it says 4 years, you look somewhere else and it says, 2 years, unless you're an alternate, then it's 4 years, and that's,
Yeah,
But you bring up a very valid point. We're gonna have to,
We make a decision on the COO.
we can't completely default to 2006 because we've added a position that's in that list.
Gotcha.
So
Okay,
what-
I think just if you're gonna default to 2006, I mean, you may wanna, the other comment from the board was on the difference for the economic development director, which kind of doesn't make sense. I mean,
Oh, that's with cause?
That,
Without cause.
yeah, that's the only one that's without cause of these type of, department heads.
But also in that case, if people have been hired under that and performed in the past under that situation, why change it?
Yep. That's a fair point.
and that's an example of why this change wouldn't really make a huge difference.
I like that.
But it doesn't make it any less anxiety provoking for employees, I guess.
All right, Jerry, give us some direction.
Yeah.
Let's figure this out.
I like terms.
I like terms.
What if we did terms with a performance review?
I don't think we can.
Well, so let me, so before we go to kind of a sensitive body, I will say, I think no matter what we do, it has to have some tie back to performance review. I don't know where that is, but, like I said, Commissioner Treshnick and I had this discussion, and this is an HR professional. To say you're gonna judge somebody against against some criteria where there is no criteria, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right?
You do HR, Eric?
Yeah, among other things, yes.
Good on
Various things.
I didn't know that.
That's what his LinkedIn says anyway, you never know,
Well, that's like Wikipedia, you could just steal.
That is true.
Factor that.
Internal
out.
But I believe, but I believe him when he
Internal
says.
management, like different things.
That's great.
Okay, let's take a sense of the body. Who thinks that the right path, and maybe we can go with two paths is to just, to put under section 1.4B, to just put terms.
What's the other path you're thinking of? To know what-
I think the only two paths I'm seeing right now is to completely default back to 2006 and don't make any changes with the exception of that one role, or put terms in.
And just for the record, the reason why I say terms with a performance review is to counter the criticism about the administration change, or counter the fear about the administration change. So in other words, like, if we state that there's some objective criteria, Mr. DeWitt,
Yes.
then there's some objective standard, and then I think that allays the fear of some that every 2 years there could potentially be a, or 4 years, we're 4 years, right?
4 years.
Yeah, sorry.
So is it
Doesn't that build in
and?
Cause though? If are you saying like 4 years, but with job?
Well, I'm not suggesting 4 years.
Oh.
I'm saying a term, but a term tied to a performance review. So in other words,
Oh.
if an administration does change and that person
Has stellar performance review.
and that person is up for their term is ending, let's say during the first year or first whatever period of the new administration, that chief elected official couldn't necessarily remove them because they don't like the way they looked or some personality difference or something, that it would be tied to something objective,
And that makes it
which would
come
already
for
be on the
cause.
books, like you said. These are the,
Doesn't that take away the kind of without cause role of terms?
Yeah, it kind of does.
I mean, you're kind of building in with cause only then. Whereas if it's terms, if there's an out for the selectmen, if they don't really have cause, they can still just not make the person.
it does, but I don't know. I'm trying to come up with some sort of compromise.
Yeah,
I mean,
I feel like terms are a
This thing's
compromise
gonna-
already, but because you're,
I think terms are a compromise.
yeah, you know
I think
what?
Terms are a
You
compromise.
know what? You're
for
right.
all, you know.
I'm we can't overcome reality, which is that every 4 years someone is reelected. We just can't.
Yeah.
We can't get rid of
I
that.
mean,
Well, these terms-
the default rule for Board of Selectmen appointments by statute is the term of the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
Yeah.
but these are 4-year terms, so like the fiscal officer, or let's say the director of human resources or something, is hired in February of an odd year or something, and then it would be a term of 4 years, so it wouldn't necessarily correlate with the term of the selectman, right? It's a term,
It depends on how you write it. I mean, if you set a 4-year term, and it's not clear that it must be, that they're filling a vacancy of an existing term, which I think that's what 3.3 does.
Yeah.
oh,
So I think that if you said it's a 4-year term, that it would start, I think you would probably want to make clear that those
Yeah.
appointments are, the
Actually-
terms are coincident with.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if they're coincident with the election of the new first selectman,
Yeah, it does.
that's different than saying, I just started a year ago, my
Yeah.
4-year term, I got an overlap of 2 years, because you're not gonna, we should be,
and it does say it starts the fourth Monday in November.
Right, it does, yeah.
You're right. So it does link to the new.
Actually, quickly, Karen made a really great point, but one little caveat, which is that for cause, I don't think that you can terminate because of one bad performance.
Yeah, true,
So
True.
I take your point, and I think it's an excellent one,
yeah,
so I'm backing off my position, but
yeah.
I'll also add, like, I think in Connecticut, especially a municipal employee, if you tried to terminate because of one bad performance review, you wouldn't, that
Yeah.
would,
A couple hours of Google search made me,
an expert.
well, no, it didn't make me nowhere near an expert, but it made me realize that with causes, there's a lot of stuff behind it. A lot of stuff behind it. So sense of the body do we want to go talk to the Board of Selectmen about changing this to terms?
So we're abandoning without cause, we're just saying either terms, or we'll go back to what the original.
So I guess what I'm saying is we would abandon any individual language that we've currently added that says without cause, default back to 1.4B having terms.
And absent that, the other option is back to the
Just go back to,
Charter.
go to back, don't change anything.
I can live with either of those.
I feel bad going, I would like to go back to the original.
It would really not be good for me to go back to the old thing, but
With clause only, yeah, with no term.
I feel very strongly if we do,
You're for going back to the old charter?
No,
Oh.
because
Okay.
that would
Sorry, I
mean
heard
that
you.
a lot of them are with clause only. Whereas if you have a term, at least you have a way out.
Yeah, it's fair.
I'm in line with both of you, I think. Order of preference, terms,
Yep.
and then back to the old charters, like way down.
And then below that is adding with cause to every
Yeah.
that's like,
Down on the.
that's like, for me, that's
Same way.
that's subterranean for me.
That's out on the corner of the post road.
And again, I think that has two negative effects. One is that, well, actually three, the perception of long-term employment for taxpayers and maybe employees. And third is that, I don't think.
Doesn't actually change anything, yeah.
Well, it doesn't change
It doesn't
anything.
change anything. That's the real problem with it. It's
It
gonna be
doesn't
con-
change
it's gonna be
anything.
controversial and it doesn't change anything.
Right.
But I keep going back to what Jerry said, you know, it's, it could be used in a political way to try to kill this, right? Which is what I really don't want. And I think the unintended consequence of it is that we have people like Prue that are, you know, and you know, fortunately for Prue, she gets to listen to us for hours on end, but you know, we can't.
Unfortunately.
I don't know how we propagate that message to
I don't
everyone.
think chainsaws are lost on anybody. So everybody has a right to, you have to respect insecurity.
And I gotta say, I'm just gonna say it, with the terms, if I have to weigh against who's gonna hate terms, 300 town employees? Maybe, no, it shouldn't be 300, but let's say 50 town employees versus 6,000, 60,000 people who gotta vote for this, let's say 5,000 people are gonna vote. I'd take 50 all day.
And if the employees can understand that the terms are only for like 15 people.
Well, I mean, that's very specific.
That's very
Yeah.
specific. It's
I
look-
15 people.
I look in here and I don't see Prue's job, so if I'm Prue, I'm like, oh, I think I'm good. I'm not covered by this. But I do see Director of Public Works, and that's gonna say 4 years now. So,
I like that.
so I say we go into the Board of Select, I'll write something up to the first selectman, and just say, this is what we came up with. And would be, is it an hour meeting now? Are we really at an hour meeting? Do we really think we could do this between 3 and 4 on the 9th?
It's really the only topic you have to talk about.
I was gonna say, all the other ones are,
We agreed with.
And, I mean, I think an hour is probably enough, because if you haven't made progress in an hour.
We have the decision rights here.
Yes, we
And
do.
granted, they have the ultimate decision, but
Right.
as far as the final board, we decide.
well, for this decision, we have the ultimate, yeah.
So,
So we're all good moving forward with terms or default back to 2006?
in that order.
Those are two, yes.
Disappointed, but okay.
I would share that
COO.
sentiment,
Yeah.
exactly, yes.
COO, what do we want to do? Just show term for COO?
Term.
I would say term.
No,
Term.
I would put them almost on the same level as the.
Kinda what I would think.
Oh, with cause,
Yeah.
No, without cause.
without cause.
Yeah, I mean,
Because it's such a
I'm-
personal
I'm-
matter.
I'm good without cause.
Yeah, that's where I was gonna vote for, or advocate for.
I would bet my
Yeah.
friend, select person Vitale would prefer it to be without cause,
Mhm.
frankly.
Yeah.
Given her comments about the restrictions of the ex officio role and such.
Mhm.
I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be speaking for her, but I kind of think that's where she would go.
So we would leave the COO as written, essentially, I think, or yes, I guess we'd
I
have to
think,
change
I
it a
think
little
with
bit.
that provision, if you make it have a term, like a 4-year term, then it's gonna be a first selectman appointment anyway, so,
Isn't it gonna be anyway?
yeah. It would be at that point.
Does
I mean, it'd have to be, but
It's not
I mean, it's
bad,
gonna
I'm
be
saying
kind of be
you don't
anyway.
necessarily need to also make it without cause,
But in.
because that's within the term, right?
Yeah. No.
But I
I'm
think it should
saying
be.
we should.
What if the first selectman doesn't like them after a year? Shouldn't they be able to fire without cause and get another one? Or maybe I'm not
Yeah,
understanding.
no, I mean, that's the policy.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's what it would, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Well, I guess, but Phil brings up a point, so by adding terms, are we adding a term for the town attorney?
I think the
No.
people who are without cause.
So we're saying, for the people without cause, we're not adding a term.
Correct.
Okay,
Because a term is kind of a guarantee of.
got it, okay, so everyone's gonna have either a 4-year term, or they're gonna be without cause.
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah, there's only two, so that's a good point. You're either without cause or got a
If
term.
you're without cause, it kind of doesn't matter. 'Cause
Exactly.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So we all agree, sensitive body, all in favor?
Mhm.
Aye, okay, great. 500 if you're recording a sensitive body, true.
Well, can you just repeat what the actual motion was?
Yeah.
I didn't really, I took a sensitive body as to what we were going to bring forward to the Board of Selectmen to discuss on the
Okay.
topic of with or without cause.
Okay,
And the answer is
Appointed officers,
appointed officers.
9-3 to
have a-
9-2.
Yeah.
8.
The appointed officers, our first recommendation back would be a specific term, and if not, then default back to the current charter.
With the exception.
With the exception of the
Several, like the town attorney and like the COO and assistant town attorneys will have without cause,
Correct.
as it is today, or with the COO, we're adding that.
Correct.
Phil wants with cause though. As for the-
He's gonna be permanent.
Okay,
forever.
thank you. Agenda item 7, discussion and coordination meeting with the Board of Selectmen. I think 3 o'clock on the 9th. We kind of threw that around. I think that still works for me. I know, and it'd be a 1-hour term because, again, the Board of Selectmen meeting starts at 4.
I will publicly apologize for.
Please, not necessary, please.
Wasn't my call.
I appreciate your opinion. Public comment. Judy, what did we screw up tonight? Anything?
My only concern about the term is, if you have to hire somebody, are you gonna require that they live in town for 4 years at a $800,000, $1 million house?
I don't
No,
think-
we took that out
no.
for everybody now. Nobody has to live in town, right?
That
No.
means that you're gonna hire somebody in the
Was
area.
it within 25 miles or
And
something?
the town attorney position's no longer.
We don't have that.
Yeah, that's
We don't
gone.
have that restriction today.
For the police
But
and.
only for-
The
fire.
only,
for
the only,
police.
the only current positions is police, fire, and town attorney have to live in the town. And you guys changed it for all. of them.
Town attorney's good anywhere,
Yeah.
and police and fire are good 20
Right, you could have
some
a-
odd.
30
Town attorney. in
30 miles? I
California.
forget what we put.
Sorry? You have a town attorney in California.
As
Virtual.
long as they're like licensed to
be
practice
licensed.
law
They should
in
be licensed.
Connecticut,
You have to
right?
be licensed. Yeah, that's the only.
That is in the charter.
Anything else?
Just as a point, can a lawyer have a contract to be fired with only by cause?
A
I
lawyer?
can imagine that.
A client can fire their lawyer whenever they want.
It's a good question. I don't know. I mean, if they're
Aha!
in-house attorney, an in-house attorney.
That's what I don't know, an in-house
Yeah,
attorney.
In-house attorney, of course.
Maybe you get severance if you're fired without cause, but you would.
Client gets to pick their
I
lawyer.
think for an external attorney, I mean, they're not an employee, so.
And I can get fired at any time.
Right.
That's a good point, you're not an employee though, usually, right?
I'm an employee I have
Yeah, I
a
mean,
contract.
the charter on the town attorney, the charter doesn't specify whether they're an employee or not. I mean, the town could have an in-house legal department. It's never had that.
Our ethical considerations require that our client gets to choose the lawyer. You can't force yourself.
Can't force yourself.
Yeah, no, right.
Right.
But I think there's also a question of the client, right? Because if, like, when I was in-house, I always took the position, I hope it was right, that, the client is probably the legislative body, because that is the town. But then there was a question of, like, is it appropriate for a mayor or a first select person to remove you unilaterally? So I think your question is a good one. It's thought-provoking, but I think there's also some distinction between like who is the client versus who has the removal
Right.
authority.
It's interesting you say it's legislative body. I would have thought it was the mayor.
I would thought you would have said executive body.
It depends upon the charter.
I thought he was gonna say too.
It depends on the charter.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
All right.
I'm still bewildered by the fact that you can point to the fact that a town attorney refused to write an ordinance for the RTM. I'm thinking,
There are charters that say that like the town manager is
I can
the
expand on that.
executive
but-
We'll talk about that after the video goes
There
on.
are charters that say
Motion
like
to
in the
adjourn.
town manager government, that the town manager is the-
Second.
is the.
Right.
All in favor?
You know,
We are adjourned. Thank you, Prue. Thank you for your comments, Prue.
thank you, Prue.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.